Dr. Swamy is a fighter against corruption in government. To his considerable credit, he has indicted a sitting cabinet minister and had sent him to jail. It has, I think, never happened in India before. He is strongly engaged in pursuing, in courts, several high-powered entities like the Home Minister, Mr. Chidambaram, even Sonia Gandhi. I mean, it gives me goosebumps, really. This fight takes not only a strong legal mind, which he is, strong and steady organized effort, which it definitely provides, but it takes rare courage. In Dr. Swamy, you have it all, like a one-man orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to quote my friend I mentioned to you earlier before, Mr. Suresh Patel, who, although he's not here, this is what he's talked about Dr. Swamy to me. He says, some try to strengthen the roots to save the tree. Others like to work on branches and leaves and hope that the tree will be saved. Dr. Swamy nurtures the roots. It is not an ordinary thing. So it is therefore my great honor to present to you Dr. Subramanian Swamy.
Thank you, Parikh ji, friends of and honorable citizens of Houston City and nearby, some from long distances. It's a pleasure to be here again to speak to you about the burning issue of our country today, corruption. I think the next Lok Sabha elections would be fought on two issues, corruption and national security. And ironically, both are related. I hope to show you the connections that exist between the two. Today, I'll structure my talk on four headings. First is why corruption is bad. Because some people think they can live with corruption. But I would like to explain to you that's burning candles at both ends. Corruption is bad. It signals, it's a cancer which signals ultimately your premature death. Second is, my topic will be, how did it get so extensive in India? Because now the numbers are gigantic. This 2G spectrum, the loss to the nation was $40 billion, which is close to 45% of our GDP. And the bribe paid was a staggering $12 billion. So therefore, and of course it was the 2G, it now turns out is the smaller of the scandals that have taken place. The coal mining scam, that is the handing out of coal mining pits to private interests, that is 3 times that of 2G. And oil field scam is 7 times that of 2G. I think if you didn't have corruption in these areas, you wouldn't have to pay taxes at all. You would raise so much resources that you might be in a position to lend to Europe and the United States to manage their economies. So it's got very extensive, and obviously it is reaching a point of explosion. So therefore, how did it get so far? I mean, how did it start, and how did it generate so much? Then third topic, a third heading would be, is there a cure today? And what needs to be done? And finally, since you are all living in the United States here, you would like to know in what way you can contribute to this struggle, because it is really an international struggle. And I think, therefore, fighting corruption worldwide or fighting corruption in India, they're all part of the same thing. So these four headings I would address my meetings. I believe there'll be questions at the end. And so I'll welcome any of the questions. I would say that those of you who find that I'm not able to or didn't completely answer your questions or didn't answer your question at all, you can all send me an email at swamy39@gmail.com, which the sponsors have. I have a website where there are two websites. One where a more sophisticated analysis is there for academic type people, and one which is more for people who want a quick survey of what is going on. The quick survey of what is going on is contained in my party website, janataparty.org, and the more sophisticated analysis will be in something called indiaright.org. So there are, in a case you can't remember these, you just send me an email at swamy39@gmail.com. I'd be happy to forward to you the website in reply. Now, I begin first by stating my thesis that today India would have been a global power but for the negative effects of corruption. And in the end, I will conclude with how we could have been a global power today had we not been corrupt. And corrupt we are by all objective standards. The Transparency International, which is an international NGO, has maintained over years an objective measure of corrupt countries. They have made 5-6 points and then given it a number and then created an index called the Transparency Index. And in that they have ranked country according to their level of corruption. The most honest country has a rank of number 1, and the most corrupt country will be at the bottom of the list. And they have done it for about 140 countries, ranked them. The country number 1 is countries like the Scandinavian countries or New Zealand or something like that. United States would be the 20th country down the list. India is now 94th country, little better than Pakistan, but that is not a great matter for satisfaction. And China is a little around there only. China, in fact, in my opinion, is a more corrupt country than India, but it's not extensive like ours. In China, there are few people who pay and pay heavily, and then everything moves smoothly. Whereas in India, you will have to go right down to the chaprasi and pay him something. So that's a difference. The amounts are smaller in India than China, but nevertheless, you have to spread it around. So the Transparency Index shows India's position going down every year. 10 years ago, our position was much higher. We were the 75th country. Now we are 94th. And we may end up with the 140th number very soon, the way things are going. Now, is this endemic or is this something that has been there for a long time? Well, it's extensive because the biggest deposits of illegal bank accounts in safe havens is that of Indians. Switzerland says very clearly that we will go bankrupt without the Indian illegal bank accounts. And see how Switzerland makes money on the money deposit by Indians. You know that in a secret bank account in Switzerland, they don't pay you any interest for the deposit. You have to pay them a 2% service charge. And then what Switzerland does is it takes the money you have deposited, takes it to the American bond market, which is a safe market, and invests it there for 4%. So 2% from you as a service charge and 4% from the bond market. Switzerland, without doing any work at all, gets 6% on a huge investment, which is a $1.5 trillion. Indian deposits today abroad are $1.5 trillion. And that's a huge amount. That means translated would be about 70 lakh crore rupees. So the extensiveness you can see there, 40% of our GDP today is black money. So we see that the problem of corruption is spread very widely. But the question arises, are we by genetics corrupt people? Well, answer is no, because at least we have some records which show that people who came from abroad, say 1400, 1600, 1700 years ago, Fascian came from China. He was looking for Sanskrit texts on Buddhism. And he wrote a book after staying in India for many, many years about his travels within India. And he said the one significant thing from the length and breadth of India, I can say, these are very honest people. So honest that when they go out of their houses, they don't lock the doors. And if you, by any chance, after visiting them, leave something behind by mistake, they will chase you and find you and return it back to you. That is what Fascian wrote in 400 AD. Similarly, Yuan Chuang, who came from China again in 1100 AD, that is 700 years later, he writes exactly the same thing. Vasco da Gama says the same thing. Mark Twain, who came much later, about 600 years ago, he says the same thing. Not 600, but 400 years ago, he says the same thing. So we have till about 1700 AD, we had a reputation for being a very honest country, honest people. Not only honest people, we were the most developed nations, most developed nation in the world at that time. We had invented mathematics, zero, decimal, surgery, plastic surgery, rockets. Today it is acknowledged in the United States that the first rockets were designed by Indians. And the British East India Company, when they were beaten by rockets in Coromandel Coast War, they stole some rockets, took it to England, put in a lot of money, and got it reinvented and redesigned. And that's how they acquired the rockets. And you read any book like Werner von Braun's book or George Gamow and all, they'll all start by saying that rocket science began with India. So here's a country which is not only the most honest, but is the most developed. It was so developed that when in 1676, merchants started coming from United States, particularly from Boston area, to India. They went to South India, to Kanchipuram, which was a port, flourishing port at that time, and started trading. And the king of Kanchipuram once called them and asked them, "What is it that I can do for you?" So they said, "Well, we are very comfortable here. Everybody is very nice and upright, and we buy all your goods, whatever we can't produce in our country. But we have one complaint, that we come with empty ships and then buy and load all the goods and then go back. Can you not buy something from us?" So the king said, "What can I buy from you? India produces everything. What is it that I can buy from you?" So they insisted that he should try and find something to buy from their country. So then he said, you see, in Kanchipuram I have never seen snow and ice. I know that there is ice in Himalayas, but then I have to go all the way there. In your country, I heard that your winters are so severe that for 6 months you get ice. So if you bring ice, I will buy it. And believe it or not, in the Boston area, there's a big lake called Fresh Pond in a small town called Belmont. And they have put a sign there, even today you can see the sign there, that here stood Tudor Ice Company, which used to export ice to India. And what they used to happen is that in the winter, the pond used to freeze. And then they used to cut the pond and put sawdust and take it all the way to India. I mean, how many months it would have taken, because you had to go around the Cape of Good Hope. And they maintained the temperature and brought ice and sold it. That was the state in 1676 or thereabouts, between the relationship between India and United States as far as trade is concerned. That advanced we were by then contemporary standards, and honest on top of that. But then many other things happened. Foreign invaders came, they looted this country, some of them took over the power here, stayed here, and ruled for a long time. And sometimes people say that if you are so good, so honest, so upright, so prosperous, how come you were not able to defeat these foreigners? Of course, in the beginning, there was, our people did defeat the foreigners who came, but our warfare rules were so civilized that ultimately the foreigner understood, and then he started using that to see that we are put at a disadvantage. One rule we had is that no war will start before the sun rises, and no war will continue after the sun sets. So in the morning you start after the sun rises to go and have for a battle, and the night you come back to your tent and go to sleep. And the next morning after your bath and all that, you go back to the battlefield. That was the rule we had. And Muhammad Ghori, after being defeated several times, he realized that the secret is to come at 3 a.m. in the morning, when our people, soldiers, are getting up and going to the bathroom. That is the time to catch them. And his first victory came, he himself, his own chronicles record that. Similarly, we had another rule that you will not fight in the civilian centers, you will not fight in agricultural lands, you will fight in open Maidan, like Kurukshetra. Or when Ravan wanted to fight had to fight with Ram, he came out of his fort. He didn't say, Ram, you come inside the fort and I'll take care of you. But instead he came out and fought in the open Maidan. So he had to fight in the open Maidan. So ultimately when Ghazni came, the first thing he did was destroy the crops. So therefore, and create mayhem and panic by going to civilian areas. And finally, the big mistake that Prithviraj Chauhan made, we had a value system that if you, after losing the battle, you apologized, then we would return everything and send you back with a full goodbye. And I think Prithviraj Chauhan perhaps 16 times, 15 times, people don't know how many times, large number of times he forgave Muhammad Ghori. He should not have forgiven him even once, in my opinion, or at most once. But unfortunately, he forgave him each time. This civilized system of war that we had, the first person to realize that it required complete overhaul was Shivaji. And that's why the Marathas became so successful. And so I come back to this, that there is no record to show that we were a habitually corrupt nation. This has come in a big way in the recent 2 centuries, and more especially after 1947. So I come to the second question. I will come to the first question. Why is corruption bad? Many people think it's grease money. What is the harm if you give a little? Some people, of course, legitimately say, if I want to buy a house in Delhi without giving money in black, nobody will sell it to me. But that's a short-term situation. I'm not asking you, each one of you, to do something which puts you in an impossible position. We must attack the system. If you want tomorrow this black money in house sales to go, just abolish this stamp duty thing. Much of the reason why people have to pay in black is because of the stamp duties. So therefore, that's the reason. I'm not suggesting therefore that you should not buy a house till people are ready to accept in checks fully. But I would say that we should look for a cure by which people don't have to pay in black money. The real problem is this. When you engage in a corrupt act, usually at the public level, supposing I bring out a tender for building of a road, then what happens if one of the person who cannot compete in the tender because he is not so competent approaches the minister and says, if you give me this tender, if you manipulate and get me the tender, then I'll give you so much bribe. So the minister then fiddles with the conditions in such a way that the tender is altered in an impossible way for all others except one person. That tender is given to the person who then gives the bribe. Now, this gentleman has paid so much bribe to the minister, he has to recover it. So what does he do? He builds the road with substandard material that doesn't meet the specifications necessary for a good road. And as a consequence, gets substandard roads, one monsoon, and the road develops a pothole. So this is the first effect of corruption is you get substandard goods. You do not get the best. You get adulterated food. You get adulterated milk. So it's across the board, the quality of your life goes down because of corruption. And because the people who are supposed to enforce the laws, they are corrupted and therefore they do nothing. And you are an individual not in a position to make a difference. It then goes to further other things. Tomorrow you want to get an appointment as a government official, you have to pay the minister money. Then so people with less qualification get in, so unmeritorious people get in. The quality of administration suffers, the quality of judiciary will suffer, and then you see it becomes a kind of a general accepted norm, making money through corruption. If you can get away with it, do it. So that's the first negative effect that corruption has. The second negative effect it has is on your national security. Money that you get in cash in corruption, nobody is going to give you money in check because that can be traced. So they give you in cash. That cash, you see, is then given in a big part of that is given to the hawala operators to convert it into foreign exchange and put it in a Switzerland bank account or a Liechtenstein bank account or a Virgin Island bank account or a Cayman Island bank account. So the hawala operators get the money. They don't take it with them abroad. They leave it in India. Then they go to Dubai. And from Dubai, they will call their partner in Switzerland, and say that please deposit so much money in such and such bank account of such and such minister, and I will have it in rupees. So when somebody wants to bring money from abroad and wants to get a better rate than what the official exchange rate is, then we will have the cash, the rupees in India to pay him while you collect the dollars from him there. So this hawala operation is a highly developed operation. The only problem is that in Dubai, you cannot do business unless you keep the Pakistan's ISI in good humor. And therefore, every Hawala operator has some relationship with the ISI official of Pakistan's Secret Service, and he informs them. If he informs Dawood Ibrahim works for the ISI of Pakistan. So, therefore, Pakistan knows the name of every minister, every political leader who has a bank account, how much he deposited it, on which day, in which bank. That also Pakistan has. That's powerful information because you can be blackmailed with it. People ask me very often why we cannot take a stronger stand against Pakistan. After all, this November 2008, November 26th, this 2611 as it's called, is one of the most horrendous open attack by Pakistan on India. And India has never retaliated. Now we are ready to even play cricket match with them and go on as a business as usual. It is my opinion that today's government is largely blackmailed by Pakistan and will not be in a position to take any tough action against anything which might lead to a disclosure of a bank account by the Pakistan ISI. People ask why, when Supreme Court has said very clearly that Afzal Guru should be hanged, why is he not being hanged? Because that would invite retaliation from Pakistan. So how did this happen? By the simple act of transferring your money to a foreign bank account. You use agents who are amenable to foreign countries. Now, it's not only Pakistan. The Americans have access to that kind of data. The Chinese have. Almost every country keeps its people there who monitor these things. And the Americans, of course, do a terrific job with the help of computers because of terrorist financing, which they feel very strongly about. Naturally, they have been successful in stopping any terrorist attack taking place after 2001, even though many were planned in a big way for the United States. And the United States is a special target of the Islamic terrorists. But the Americans, because of their information network, their ability to follow money trail, they have managed not only because of that, but additionally because of that, they've managed to stave off terrorist attacks. So every country of the world knows what your leaders' bank accounts are, or where they are, and how much they have. Recently, somebody published a thing to show that Sonia Gandhi is the fourth richest politician in the world. Now, how did she become so rich? She is not past the 5th class. Originally, she said that she was educated in the University of Cambridge, but then I got a letter from the University of Cambridge, there was no such student. But she came from a very poor family. And whatever property they had, the Americans had grabbed it when they captured Italy, because Sonia Gandhi's father was part of Mussolini's party, fascist party, and also later on he became a soldier in Hitler's army, and he was taken as prisoner by the Russians during the war. So they were utterly poor, so poor that they had to send Sonia Gandhi to to England, to work as a waitress or a barmaid or whatever at some such level, because they needed money. And she went after an education which didn't exceed the 5th class that she got. So there now she has become very rich. According to one estimate, she has $20 billion. $20 billion is a lot of money. Now, this is all in foreign accounts. And of course, therefore, she's able to spend it when she comes for medical treatment here to the New York City Sloan Kettering. She's able to pay for not only for her, for the entire entourage, etc., in dollars, and there's no account of it. When I filed an RTI application to find out how much the government of India spent on her medical treatment or whatever it was in Sloan Kettering, they said zero, because it was paid by her, and she has that kind of money. which he can pay without difficulty. So we have today that kind of situation where politicians have a lot of money and they are compromised because the